What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Fantasy Football Weekly here at Fantasy and Frames. We got a really jam-packed show for you to hear today. We have, so many things to talk about in terms of dynasty, best ball, news around the NFL. We even have a new member of the Fantasy and Frames family joining us. So sit tight, and here we go. All right, folks. We got the usual cast of characters here. We got Kevin Tompkins. Kevin, how you doing today?
I'm here. I am still living and breathing on this plane of existence, which is good for exactly nobody, but we'll pretend it's a good thing.
Well, that is
slightly Jesus, that's a lot of fucking dark right off the bat.
Yeah.
What's going on, Kevin?
We're going 0 dark 30. It's all good. Everything's
good. Keith, please tell me you have an equally awesome description of how you're doing.
I was gonna be like, not to be an asshole, I'm doing great. But Jesus. Kevin, we need to get together. I got some really good stuff that'll put you in the best mood in the world, but we can do that when we meet up in real life and not on a video screen. But
absolutely,
things are good. My wife's in the Bahamas, so I'm not as good as she's doing, but outside of that, can't complain at all.
So Keith, you brought up on Twitter today the fact that we have a new member of the Fantasy and Frames family joining us now. On
did
Fantasy
I waste the good
Weekly.
Surprise again, or is that
you did not? No, that's not what I'm saying. You did say that we had to have special intro music for our guest here. So without further ado, let's bring on the newest member of the Fantasy and Frames family, Britt Flynn. That's right. That's right.
It's like the Limp Bizkit version of that song too.
Whoa! It's Disturbed. Okay.
Potato.
Only the good name of Disturbed with Limp Bizkit.
Hey, I like Limp
Look,
Bizkit.
David Draymond stood up for Taylor Swift, so I'm all about him.
That's right.
Okay.
Britt, thank you very much for coming on and being a part of the Fantasy and Frames family. You can find all of her written content at fantasyalarm.com, as well as all the work that she's doing now with Club Fantasy. You've seen definitely Kevin and Britt and Andrew Cooper on Fantasy Alarm's Lightning Round show last season. How you doing?
I'm so good. Being back on a podcast after, a 2 or 3 month hiatus, I was like, am I still going to remember how to speak? What's going to go on? I just feel so good though. And being back in the saddle to speak and being here with all you guys, I'm so excited and I cannot wait to talk football because everyone at work is getting really tired of me talking about football because that's not their thing. So I'm just speaking to the void.
Let it out somewhere else.
I found my people. Well, my dogs don't listen either.
They may not want to listen, but they'll listen. I mean, that's kind of the downside of being an animal, I guess.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I've been doing shows nonstop and I still can't talk properly. So just looking forward to that as we get going in today's show. But before we get into the topics for today's show, let's quickly recap what happened last night on Fantasy and Frames Wednesday. Dynasty 365. We had Pat Fitzmaurice from Fantasy Pros talking about the first crop of rookie running back prospects heading into the NFL draft. Followed that up with Fourth and Frames, where the crew had Derek Brown from Fantasy Pros talking about dynasty targets to go after this year. And then, of course, on Shoot the Gap, Justin Taylor and myself, we talked about the incoming rookie class for linebackers. So if you have any interest in going back and checking that out, head over to our YouTube page. While you're there, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you're notified whenever Fantasy and Frames drops awesome, actionable, and just quite frankly, just fun content. That's what we are. We just like to have fun, talk shop, and that's why you're watching right now, Fantasy Football Weekly. And with that, let's get into some news and notes. Rashee Rice, fucking idiot. Does that pretty much sum up his, what we think here? Or Britt, we'll throw it to you first. What are your thoughts on Rashee Rice and this whole speeding situation?
Yeah, so I have lots of thoughts on this. Not only has he admitted that he was leasing and driving the Lamborghini. The Corvette involved was also licensed and registered under his name. So those are just two things that do not mix. I know in Arkansas that drag racing is a felony. I'm not sure if it is in Texas, but what I do know in Texas, because I am a nerd and I looked up the Texas Department of Transportation laws, leaving the scene where there is serious bodily injury, where, you know, 2 people were transported to the hospital. So I think it probably fits under this case, is a 3rd degree felony. I think, you know, in the car, they found credit cards. They found a check for $16,000, a diamond chain. And then the most damning thing of all, they found the Chiefs playbook in the Lambo. Like, what are we doing here? Now, of course, this is all speculation. This has not gone on record, blah, 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 blah. But I think that not only a suspension from the league is coming, he could be facing some legitimate jail time, because this isn't some situation. I know that we know that the Chiefs aren't unfamiliar with their players getting in trouble with the law. But the thing about this is that there is dash cam footage from the cars driving. There are lots of eyewitnesses. It's just not a very good situation. It seems that his lawyer is already hedging a little bit, saying, look at his body of work and who he is as a person, instead of this one incident. Like in the press conference today, that's what his lawyer was saying, which makes me think that he's already preparing for the worst in the court of public opinion and the actual court. It's not a good situation when you're that young and you have that much money and you think that you can do whatever you want. And that's exactly what happened in this situation, I think.
You know, I'm trying to figure out, like, who is the $16,000 check for? Is that a check he got because he was selling the Chiefs playbook to somebody under the table to get some type of competitive advantage next year? Or was he anticipating getting into an accident and just signing a check over to the people that he crashed into? Like, there's on top of everything you just said, just the details of like what exactly was in his car is just crazy. Kevin, for dynasty value for Rashee Rice, like, what are we doing here? Like, what are we accepting? What are we throwing out there, if anything at all?
Like, here's the thing. We talk about all these wide receivers. We talk about all these players that get in trouble with the law. And I am not one to expect the league to do the right thing when it comes to disciplining these players. I am in a dynasty startup right now, and I just took Rashee Rice in like the 6th round. So I'm not expecting anything more than like 6-8 games. I don't think it would ever get to that point unless there's just like some damning, like maybe that $16,000 was to Marquez Valdes-Scantling to give the playbook to when they have to re-sign somebody. I mean, come on, they gave the bag to Kadarius Toney and Richie James, and they still won a Super Bowl with Rashee Rice stunning up a little bit. Like, come on.
More than a little bit, to be fair, though. He's stunning up a lot.
I mean, MVS is not exactly hurting for money, but $16,000. Here's a playbook. You know, maybe you can learn a couple plays other than the go route. So,
well, my thing's not even if the league does the right thing, because we all know how that works. But if he actually does get charged with a felony and ends up having to serve some time, like Henry Ruggs Light, he's lucky that he did not go down the Henry Ruggs path. Right. I mean,
but how long are appeals going to get dragged out on anything like that too? That could bleed into like next season. We saw with the Kamara stuff, and that was obviously for something much more serious, in my opinion. And that got dragged out 2 years after the fact. So, I mean, I think at least for the interim, it's still a wait and see thing. But you know, not only appeals, but you know, could it get bogged down in the legal system? That's a lot of gear turning that we have to do with this whole thing, and it's really just all coming out now.
I mean, not to be like this person, but when it comes to the NFL and the court system, but did you die? Nobody died. He's going to be fine. He's not going to get charged with a felony. He might get suspended 4 to 6. I'm not even trying to be, but I mean, that's the deal, right? Like, that is why the Ruggs situation is the Ruggs situation, and this is this one. He's very lucky, without a doubt, because somebody could have absolutely died. But apparently his record's clean. When your record's clean, you're usually going to get your first, no matter what kind of offense it is, knockdown. And I mean, to be honest, sometimes I think we forget that these are kids. And I'm not saying that it's not extremely irresponsible what he did, but when you come from nothing and then all of a sudden you're giving everything, this could be exactly
It's an adjustment to have to make.
Yeah, you got to get rid of, hanger-ons, basically, is the word we're looking for. There's a difference between friends and family, and it's a very hard lesson because you're coming from an area where you had nothing, and now you've come up and you're expected to take everybody with you. They're not always the best influences because they're not worried about, your success, or more just along for the ride. And that happens with family, friends, like you name it. But I really do think it's going to be 4 to 6 games. I think he'll probably get community service, be on probation, that kind of deal. I don't see, though, like the felony sticking, just because from what I understand, his record's clean thus far. And the league's not going to go extreme because, again, at the end of the day, no one was killed. Now, is he going to get sued? Absolutely. If I was one of those cars that got hit, I'd be starting a libel suit, like right now, being like, I'm taking you to court, give me some money. But he's a very talented guy, and they need him. I mean, if we're being honest, like Travis Kelce, he's busy with, T Swift, and he looked like he lost a little bit of a step anyway last year. And I really
Tommy didn't see that workout video today or yesterday.
I saw some of the
Kelce in the gym just pumping it out. Come on.
Again,
that 34-year-old is ready.
That's my point. Tight ends, typically not a great history. He's already actually far exceeded what most tight ends do at his age. It's a very physical position. I don't expect him to have monster seasons. It'll be more like what they did last year when they really need him. He'd give them like a great half, which is like what he did in a couple of playoff games. But if you're talking about an entire game of Travis Kelce being uncoverable, we didn't see a ton of that this year. And I don't think you're going to see about that moving forward. But Rice was their guy. I mean, if you look from like week 9 on, he was a top wide receiver in the NFL. And it helps when you have Mahomes, especially when they, for whatever reason, can't find other guys to, fill in that spot.
Right. Keith, you made a good point too about the hangers on, like the people that you kind of grow up with. Maybe that's something the league should or individual franchises to look at more of the rookie intake. And this is what you are, this is what you're expected to do. This is, maybe some money management. I mean, that money 30 for 30 is like the clearest example of how to blow money when you're a professional athlete. Like, you should just show that documentary and then set players up with a bank account, or, you clearly have the resources to do this thing. And I think it's a clear misstep by not even at the league level or at the team level to not offer that to your rookies to get them started on the right foot. So you're not having to depend on, okay, well, you've been playing, maybe you got some NIL money, but now you're getting, you're in the NFL. And that kind of gets to your head a little bit to where you think you're invincible. And seems like this could be one of the things where maybe Rashee Rice, I just, won a Super Bowl. I'm Patrick Mahomes, one of his top targets. What are they going to do to me? Now we're looking at it.
Yeah.
Watch out what you're saying, Kevin. I said that same thing on Twitter the other day and the trolls came for me. You better watch out.
I hope they come for me. I'll just go 0 dark 30 again.
I hear what you all are saying. But, and Keith, to your point, I get what you're saying. The environment, he being a younger person, the environment that he grew up with, the people he has around him influencing him. But you know what? There's this thing called personal accountability that I think should not.
How many
be overlooked.
22-year-olds that are very accountable, though? Honestly,
but who runs away? Who runs away though?
Yeah, how many 22-year-olds do you know go racing in Lamborghinis and Ferraris going 110 miles an hour, crashing into other cars,
City, Georgia,
crashing into other cars, and then fleeing
Erie Boulevard in Syracuse, New York.
I'm just saying, I think sometimes as we get older, we forget what it is to be 22 years old. He was terrified. That's why he fled the scene, without a doubt. He was really scared, which he should.
You don't know how to process the situation. Fight or flight.
Exactly. Like, I'm just saying again, when it's a 22-year-old, I don't want us to forget, like, I was a fucking moron at that age and did a lot of stupid stuff. And, there was plenty of times I should have gone to jail and I didn't for, whatever reason. I just think at the end of the day, Barry should thank God that nobody died, because if they would have, this is seriously just like with Ruggs, he's going to jail for a long time. But I mean, again, not to be morbid or anything, but did you die? Like, I think that's the way the NFL and the court system are going to look at it, is nobody died. We'll let this be handled in, personal court, and he's going to get a slap on the wrist and a small suspension.
Fair enough. All right, let's talk to some more recent news as of yesterday. I don't know if you all have seen the video yet in regards to the Stephon Diggs trade, where somebody took captions from a scene from Napoleon Dynamite. Did you see what I was talking? Does anybody else know what I'm talking about here?
I just laugh anytime I think of Napoleon Dynamite. So I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
If you haven't, go on Twitter, search Napoleon Dynamite Buffalo Bills. It is, if you have a dark sense of humor, you will totally appreciate this. I was at work. I saw it on my phone. I went to my boss in his office, and he was super busy. And first of all, the interaction with him was just kind of odd, but funny at the same time. I'm like, hey, do you have a dark sense of, yes, I do. What do you got for me? And I'm like, whoa, that was kind of a quick response there. Have you seen Napoleon Dynamite? He's like, of course I have. I'm like, watch this Buffalo Bills thing. Ronnie Evans put it together on Twitter, so definitely go check that out. It is freaking hilarious. But speaking of hilarious, and not really hilarious, Clayton Lehman over on YouTube says, can I ask for trade advice here? You can ask for whatever you want, Clayton. So go fire away. Stephon Diggs, no longer a Buffalo Bill. And, from a lot of the Bills fans that I've talked to, they're kind of okay with that, given all the drama that he's been having with Josh Allen the past couple seasons, ever since that playoff loss against the Bengals in Buffalo. Now he goes to the Houston Texans, and if I'm a CJ Stroud dynasty manager, I am so happy. I am so happy beyond belief. If I'm a Tank Dell and a Nico Collins manager, I don't know. I don't know what to think. Britt, let's go back to you. What are your thoughts on this whole trade situation? Then we'll go to Keith afterwards.
So I definitely agree that it makes the wide receiver situation in Houston murky at best, because especially everybody who's been drafting early in startups in best ball leagues, Collins and Dell have been going around the third or fourth round. And, now here comes Stephon Diggs, who's been with an all-pro quarterback. He's been an all-pro like a stud. But what interested me today was the news that the Texans voided the remaining 3 years on his contract and basically made this a one-year deal. They gave him a little bit more money, so he's going to make a little bit more this season, but it's basically a prove-it deal, and he's going to be a free agent next year. So being 30 years old, being a free agent, being the locker room cancer that he's been, not only in Buffalo, but in Minnesota, because they were too run-heavy. Even in college, that's why he fell in the draft, because he had some character issues. I'm not super concerned about Diggs being an issue. I think that Stroud already has a relationship with Tank Dell. He already has a relationship with Nico Collins. Diggs is definitely going to have a part in this offense, but it's not going to be that first or second round wide receiver that we're used to seeing. I think that he's much more in the fourth roundish tier of things, that these guys kind of cancel each other out. Whoever's the cheapest you're going to take. Who it really hurts the most is John Mechie and Dalton Schultz.
Keith, talking about the cheapest here, let's get to some DFS theoretical situations here in the fall, being our head of content here for DFS content at Fantasy and Frames. Who's the cheapest wide receiver here?
I mean, I don't really have any idea right now, but
give me 6,000 Tank Dell, baby.
No, who do you anticipate being the cheapest wide receiver?
I mean, I would assume that it would be Dell the first few weeks. Diggs would be the most expensive, and then Collins. Because when Collins and Dell played last year, I think there was maybe 2 weeks that Collins wasn't at least a few $100s more expensive than Dell. But I think this is a huge mistake. I don't understand. You have the best young quarterback we've seen in forever. And so you're going to trade for a guy that is either going to get peppered with targets to the point where he's going to have to force feed him the ball to keep him happy, or otherwise he's going to bitch and complain and start shit on a team that really felt like they were a cohesive unit last year. And you don't need him. At the end of the day, there's so many wide receivers in this class that you can have for 4 freaking years, potentially 5 by signing the extension. And instead you're going to give up capital and then say, oh, we're only going to do a 1-year deal with. Like, none of this makes any sense to me. And I'm real nervous for CJ Stroud because I'm telling you, watch Josh Allen this year. He force feeds the ball to Diggs. And if you ever watch the sidelines, you see why. Because if he's not constantly throwing it to him 30% of the time, Diggs is just constantly in his ear yelling at the coaches. And again, he's the number one wide receiver. It's a little, I guess, different situation in Houston because you can say he's not. But I hope I'm wrong. But this worries me big time for, I think the best young QB I've ever seen. That was the best rookie season I've ever seen when you look at his offensive line, his wide receivers. You're going to have Dale coming back. You're going to have Collins. You re-signed Schultz. You upgraded running back. Your defenses, but you don't need this headache and this guy that needs to be force-fed the ball. It just, to me, makes zero sense.
Well, let's talk about quickly somebody who should have the ball force-fed to them, and that is Brandon Ayuk. And Clayton has his trade question here. And Keith, let's keep it with you. Brandon Ayuk for Devin Singletary and a 2024 12th pick in the first round.
That would have to be Devin Singletary and probably a top 4 pick for me to get rid of Brandon Ayuk. They're going to either get rid of Debo or Ayuk. I mean, it's going to happen in the next year. Ayuk, by PFF standards, if you're a nerd like me and love data, he is literally one of the best wide receivers in football already. And I mean, he's 25 years old. And they're either going to get rid of Debo in another year, which I think that's what's going to happen, is they're going to kind of make it work this year, not re-sign Debo. They're going to end up extending Ayuk. And then he's going to be the clear-cut number 1 receiver in San Francisco. Or they decide to keep Debo and they trade Ayuk. Now he gets a chance to be the number 1 wide receiver on another team. I just think he's way too talented for 112.
Brandon Beane's going to cook. Trade for Brandon Ayuk. All our problems are solved.
Yeah,
Honestly,
I would have run to the podium to decline that trade, by the way.
Yeah, no, don't hold on to Ayuk because Singletary, let's think about this, right? Singletary did okay in Houston, weirdly enough, but
Right.
he's going to the Giants where even Saquon Barkley had to force his way to gain yards after contact. This guy was getting mauled and he only because he's such a good athlete was he able to produce.
Thunder
Singletary is not the guy. He is 5'7". He's shorter than me. Okay. He is not the guy who's going to be able to create yards after contact. And honestly, I don't really care about the first round picks this season because it is so deep, especially in wide receivers.
Run to the podium, Clayton. Run to the podium.
So he's saying he's actually
he's
getting
getting-
Ayuk for
Yes.
Singletary and the 12th overall pick.
Oh, then
Walk,
yes.
don't
I
run.
love it.
Or
Yeah.
run, don't walk.
Love it, love it, love it.
So we got another person in the comments here who I think you all know.
Hey,
Funny enough.
Colbs.
The
You
You say
world,
the Texans name.
one
3
Texans
times,
fan.
There's Colby Conway. What's up,
Beetlejuice,
Colby?
Beetlejuice.
Right?
Yeah, as soon as the trade went down, I saw on Twitter Howard Bender go, somebody do a wellness check on Colby Conway, see how he's doing.
He's talked himself into it by now. I mean, I'm a Falcons fan. I do this every year. So, I mean, eventually you talk yourself into it. You have to as a fan. It's coping. But he knows deep down this is troublesome.
Kevin, let's go to you. Is the 103 the easiest pick in drafts this year? Just let's start with that question first.
I mean, I think the top 2 are the easiest for me. I'm taking obviously a super flex. It's Caleb and Marvin Harrison for me. I don't think that's 103 is a little bit difficult. You got to wait for the draft to see how that shakes out. We're seeing where these quarterbacks land, or you see it if you're feeling Neighbors wherever he lands. If he lands with the Giants or Patriots, I have some concerns if maybe if the Commanders land what's his face, Jane Daniels, then I'll probably take him 103. But I have some serious reservations about taking Neighbors, especially if he lands with the Giants or the Patriots. So I don't know if it's the easiest, but I think there's still more to shake out. Whereas I think Caleb and Marvin Harrison are just clear cut 1 and 2. I think those are the 2 easiest for me.
Am I the only one who hates Caleb Williams?
Yes.
Why do you hate Caleb Williams?
I don't hate his production at USC. what really worries me is his pressure grade. Out of all the quarterbacks, he's going to a team, the Bears, that ranked 23rd in pass blocking last season. They didn't do anything in free agency. Williams, with no pressure, is first. That's, doesn't need to be stated. When he's under pressure, he ranked 113 with a grade of 39.1. This Bears offensive line is not going to be able to keep the pressure off of him. And I'm really concerned. That's what everybody said. Well, his defense gave up X amount of points per game. So of course he had to throw blah, 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 blah. Do we think the Bears defense is going to be any better? Like, of course he's got Keenan Allen and DJ Moore, but if he's pressured all the time, I really am concerned about this situation, as well as the fact that his father is kind of worse than the ball boy's father. In the NBA, saying that he wants an ownership stake in whichever team he's drafted in. That is such a big distraction. I'm not sold on Caleb Williams, and I personally will not be taking him with a 101 pick.
Well, I don't allow any Caleb Williams slander. So the one thing I was
shit. I just said it.
The offensive line was awful. He had the most pressures in college football last year. They had the worst win rate in pass blocking of any offensive line in Division I. That was why. Go watch the Oregon game. Go watch. There's so many games where he's making unbelievable throws under pressure. He's not going to be under pressure nearly as much at Chicago as he was for USC. It was a literally atrocious offensive line. I mean, I understand there's concerns. There is with anyone, but from a talent perspective, this guy's incredible. And you talked about that awful pressure. He still only turned the ball over. He only threw 5 interceptions with all the throws that he made under pressure, all that. He still wasn't turning the ball over a lot. I mean, I think this is a great situation for him. The Bears defense was really good second half of the season last year, and they played 3 playoff teams, if I remember, in like their last 5 games. And I like what they built around him. I think this is a great situation. And I mean, if you want to not go QB and it's not super flex, I can understand. I think Harrison and Bowers both will be 2 of the best players in fantasy within a year or 2. But if we're talking about like can't miss from a talent perspective, he's up there to me with like Andrew Luck. Trevor Lawrence, who knows? But I mean, like Peyton Manning, like that's the kind of level he is above. I mean, so many players that we've kind of seen over the last 2 decades, and they actually look like they got a good situation around them, which has been the biggest issue with a lot of these uber talented guys that came in the league. Is it's just been a mess where they get drafted.
The one thing I will say about Caleb Williams, and whenever I'm watching, the Bucky Brooks or the Daniel Jeremiah's and whatever draft shows, the Path to the Draft you see every day on NFL Network, the one thing they say about Caleb Williams is like, oh, when he improvises, he's one of the best college quarterbacks. But like, again, going to Keith's point, and kind of Britt's point as well. Yeah, like they didn't address offensive line. He is going to be scrambling. He's going to be playing under pressure.
Yes, they have a bunch of draft picks, in fairness.
This is true. But let's say they don't address offensive line, okay? Then this is kind of in his wheelhouse, right? He's used to running for his life because USC's offensive line wasn't exactly great either. But I don't know. I'll say this about Caleb Williams in the Chicago Bears situation. I don't think I've ever seen an NFL team surround a incoming rookie quarterback with as much weapons as the Bears have done this offseason, getting ready to select them. I mean, you make the trade for Keenan Allen. Last year, you got DJ Moore. You signed DeAndre Swift. On the defensive side of the ball, they brought in the 2 linebackers last year. They brought in a pair of safeties. Montez Sweat trade last year. So I think we could expect good things. But Britt, going back to what your point is, you would not select them at the 101. Who would you take at 101?
So I'm very much about landing spots, because I don't necessarily know if Marvin Harrison is going to go as the first wide receiver off the board. There's been a lot of steam with Neighbors being the first. I don't necessarily know if I agree with that. I really do like Jaden Daniels. I know that he has some concerns about his frame and his size. That's something that you can correct, that you can fix when you get in a weight room, when you get the proper nutrition, training, things like that. What I do like is his ability to both run and be an accurate and deep pocket passer. With Washington, with Dan Quinn being there, I think it's going to be kind of the same thing that we've seen with Matt Ryan in the past with the Falcons, except he's going to have that mobility aspect as well. So I really do like Jaden Daniels.
To Crispy's comment in the chat talking about when healthy, the offensive line isn't bad. True, but you could say that about a lot of offensive.
They have the number 9 pick and arguably the best tackle draft in 2-3 decades. So everybody's got them going wide receiver. I think if they're smart, you grab one of those, either tackle, you grab Powers Johnson, who's one of the best centers we've seen in forever. There's a couple of good guards. The teams that are going to win this draft are going to take guys up front. It's not sexy, but those are like some of the best players in this draft.
Well, I hope they do, because according to PFF last year, they were the 10th worst pass blocking unit in all the NFL. So not exactly a good situation.
That's what I said, Chris.
We got a comment here. Got Angie in the chat. Welcome, Angie. I'm with Britt on this one. If anyone is on the fence, Caleb's dad is enough to tip the scale. Yeah, good job bringing up Lamar. Is it LeVar or Lamar Ball?
LeVar Ball.
LeVar, yeah, and big baller brand.
LeVar and Mello.
Do you remember the shoes back in the day when they were like trying to like pedal, like you have to get the big baller brand shoes?
He hurt his kids' like feet by making them wear those shoes. Like they were, I'm not kidding. They were so shitty, and he wore them in games that he actually.
Lonzo Ball hasn't played in like 2 years, has
That's
he?
what I'm saying. Like that. I'm not that that's the whole reason, but that is part of what started his issues. He's wearing these shoes that literally the team's going, "What are you doing? These are garbage." And he was selling them for like $500 a pair. So
yeah, that's
real genius.
You know, and I'm glad we got Clayton's trade question here talking about Brandon Ayuk. And let's just quickly cruise through this one. Keith, let's go to you. If there was a landing spot destination for Brandon Ayuk in a trade, which team do you think would benefit the most, as well as for fantasy managers, you know, especially in Dynasty, rostering Brandon Ayuk, if you had to pick one?
Well, for starters, I would say the answer is staying in San Francisco. Debo goes. You look, Brock Purdy, they threw the ball so much more down the field. And Purdy was one of the best down the field quarterbacks, like statistically across the board. But if you're asking like from a situation or whatever, I mean, Kevin called it. Like you would love to see this guy go to Buffalo. I think he would fit very well with that team because he's also a great blocker, which no offense, Stephon Diggs, something he's not either. And we know how much Buffalo likes to run the ball with James Cook, Josh Allen.
Even if he doesn't go to Buffalo, they still got Mac Hollins. So I think you're good.
Whoa.
Listen, Mac Hollins let me beat Howard Bender in
I love Mac Hollins
Classic Auction League 2 years ago because I picked him up on that double touchdown game. So let's not slander Mac Hollins.
No, he was good for the Falcons this year.
But let's slander him though, for real.
But I mean,
I will slander Clunkzilla whenever I feel like it.
How you gonna call him Clunkzilla? Come on.
That dude don't wear shoes. That dude went on one of the NFL Network shows literally without shoes, wearing like a poncho.
So you wouldn't have done well in the late 60s and early 70s is what you're telling me.
Oh, no, he would have done great. He would have cleaned up.
No, I'm saying you wouldn't have because you obviously don't like it, and I think everybody was pretty much barefoot. At least
I would have.
TV and the internet don't lie to me.
That's why they have pinworms.
Speaking of pinworms, and as well as blown up Achilles tendon from last year, J.K. Dobbins went to get looked at by the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Chiefs decided to bring back Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Britt, like, what the hell, right? Does this speak more volumes about what the Chiefs are probably thinking about Dobbins in terms of his injury, or do you think this is more of like a maybe a bartering thing when it comes to haggling for contract price and whatnot? What are your thoughts with this?
No, I don't think that it's a loyalty thing to CEH at all. I think that this just means that Dobbins is washed because as a Cowboys fan as well, who have not done jack shit in free agency, you would think that they would be looking to bring somebody in as well. I know that Dobbins was, talked about going to Dallas. I was worried about his knees holding up in pass protection because they lost their center. They lost Tyron Smith. CEH has also not been good. His first season was his best year. And even then, 800 yards, it went down to 500, then 300, then 200. So I think that the Chiefs are just willing to sign him as their backup because A, it means that they are all in on Pacheco. And B, I really don't think that Dobbins has anything left in the tank. I think that his legs at this point in time, after all these injuries, are pretty much like Gumby legs. And all of these NFL front office execs are seeing that.
Gumby legs. I love it.
We can swear on this show, Britt. So when you say it's not been good, you can just say Hilaire's been shitty, like really shitty as a pro, because it's awful.
That's being awfully nice.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
Well, I just said jack shit. I didn't want to like
Touche,
repeat
yeah.
myself too much.
Yeah, don't be redundant with the shit.
Yeah, but we need to drive the point home that CH is dog.
And everybody
Like,
was
take
in on that pick. Do you remember that? Like, I mean, everybody's like, this is a perfect player for the perfect
It's
team.
107 in redraft.
And oh my God, it was awful.
Like
Lord.
J.K. Dobbins will be signed in August. Like that's what he's going to be. He is going to be either somebody gets hurt or maybe we'll take a flyer on him after the 13th workout video his agent puts out. Like that's where he's at. That it doesn't say anything about CEH. CEH is literally a warm body that happens to play right.
Yep. If the Chargers don't get Blake Corum, then they'll sign
Maybe
J.K.
Blake.
Dobbins.
I'd be shocked if they don't take Blake Corum. I've been saying this since we've kind of seen what happened to their backfield. Harbaugh's like, yeah, I'm getting my guy.
Yeah.
The Gus Edwards disrespect is just crazy. Can you imagine?
I'm
Like
going to
those,
stop Edwards from the one. I really think they see how valuable having a guy that can score from close is. And that's why he's about, they picked him
Also,
up.
if you look at Vegas odds, the team to draft Blake Corum, the Chargers are leading the charge. Aren't you glad that you brought me on today? At plus 340. Then the next is the Rams at plus 1400. Like Vegas is usually pretty dialed into this stuff. I don't think that there's any way that Corum does not become a Charger.
well,
And I'm still fine with the Gus Edwards price because Gus Edwards is still
100%.
going in like the 11th round in like best ball. Like I know that maybe some of the sentiment that they are going to draft Corum or at least draft a running back is kind of indicative of that price, but like Gus Edwards is a pretty great 0 RB pick. At least
you sign him because he's going to be your goal line back. I mean, literally, that's
you want 800 yards and 10 touchdowns.
Yeah,
you don't think that's going to that's going to hit your lineup in week 17? Like,
Yep.
absolutely.
Say the Chargers offense is good, right? Like we all believe in Herbert.
Even if
Say
they're
with
average,
Harbaugh.
because we're
No, I'm
not
saying,
projecting
yeah,
them for
I got you.
anything.
Speaking
Yeah.
of projecting things, let's talk about who's going to be getting the kiss of death here in Kansas City. CEH, Sky Moore, who's getting it this year? Kiss of death. Keith, what are your thoughts?
Can we explain what kiss of death is?
I'm going to assume
it
I'm going to assume it means having zero or close to zero fantasy impact for your teams this year.
How about both? We'll go
Okay.
both of them.
Hey, that works for me.
Can we add players?
Sure, go right ahead.
I mean,
Richie James.
is he even on the roster anymore?
Kadarius
You know what's
Toney.
funny? I was looking at our lads right now. You know who's on their roster right now is Anthony Miller, like Bears Anthony Miller from like
No
4 years
shit.
ago.
Wow.
Like I didn't think that dude was still alive. Apparently, he is like wide receiver 10.
He's
on the
thriving. So you're wrong, Kevin. Not only is he alive, he's on a team.
And a champion. So
I was gonna say practice squad members.
think
get
he was-
rings too.
Yeah, I think he was on the practice squad. Like I'm not drafting Marquise Brown anywhere, and I have just like I don't have anything like any take to anything to cite for this. It's just
Well,
purely
you're saying
anecdotal.
at his like
But
price
Marquise
for-
Brown, he does nothing for me. I don't care if he's getting the ball from Mahomes. I just have like a pit of my stomach feeling that Marquise Brown is going to be like the biggest bust of any like name wide receiver. And he's going like wide receiver 30-ish right now? Like
The
40.
fact that he traded
Yeah.
himself away on his own fantasy team last year tells
Is
me
that right?
Andrew
For every
Cooper
Miles
runs
Sanders
the-
don't draft me, there's the Marquise Brown will be right.
Yep. No, well,
It-
there's a video that and Andrew
Just
Cooper
remind you
brought
that
this
you
up
just
for
said
us.
that Rice could end up missing 4 to 6 games, and I mean they got to throw the ball to
I
somebody.
mean, he can, but
Justin
it doesn't
Watson,
matter
baby.
if Marquise Brown gets hurt.
Noah
Like,
Gray.
they're going to.
Noah Gray.
Irv Smith.
Oh,
No, I'm not. No, I would
I'm
rather.
done.
fall
I guess he
victim
might
of
be
done.
the clubhouse
Irv
leader in
Smith.
the kiss of death.
No way. Yeah.
Mahomes is just gonna like throw the ball to himself.
He'd be like, I'd rather throw to Irv Smith's dad than throw to Irv Smith.
basically, Keith, and you'll get this reference. Patrick Mahomes, that is, will be the Kurt Hennig, aka Mr. Perfect, from the video montages from the 90s, where he would throw the ball as far as he could and also catch said ball in the end zone for a 50-yard touchdown. If you haven't seen those montages, YouTube, Mr. Perfect, football.
Him catching the towel. No.
Yeah, I was going to say, Mahomes is throwing the towel, and Heenan is going to be like Justin Watson, who just happens to catch it in stride, no problem. And they're going to win another Super Bowl with Justin Watson as their 80 target, leading after Kelsey wide receiver, just because.
I promise you, Britt, I know it's your first show here, but we will make a pro wrestling fan out of you yet if you are not already. Believe you me, it's gonna happen. Just
Saturday night.
Hey, I watched the Iron Claw, so
okay.
It already got me.
Not exactly a fun hang, though. That's not the fun part of wrestling.
Right.
That's a pretty great movie, but very fucking depressing.
Yeah.
But we got The Rock Saturday night. I mean, come on, Rock, Roman Reigns. They were on Jimmy Fallon last night. You should at least watch the main event. It's going to be must-see television.
I have to work.
100%.
Maybe I'll have him put it on the TV at work.
There
Let
you
all
go.
the kids get some exposure.
Oh, they love it. Kids love wrestling.
By the way, Chris, I think the Chargers will be running the triple option this year. That, yeah.
All right, let's get into some best ball talk here. Kevin, let's start with you here. As we're inching closer to the NFL draft, just, knowing you're probably in a best ball draft right now as we're having this show currently go on.
Sure
have you been noticing, over the course of all the drafts you've been doing lately that certain players are moving up in terms of value or maybe moving down, whether they're veterans or rookies?
Yeah, like I'm looking at veteran wise, like some of the quarterbacks that kind of went unscathed, they got their their situations improved, like Will Levis. Like Will Levis now gets, Hopkins and Ridley, and Brian Callahan should be the adult in a room and putting together an offense that maybe will look normal in this year rather than, the leather helmet offenses that they've ran with Derrick Henry and Mike Vrabel and Arthur Smith and all that. So like Will Levis is a totally fine, like QB, low end QB2, QB3-ish option. And then I guess if you want to talk about the Falcons, like they're all kind of rising too. Drake London's price might be a little too frothy if you're looking at like in the top 12 to 14 wide receivers, but like certainly Kyle Pitts is a guy I'm targeting, no problem. Now Kirk Cousins, you got to figure there's going to be 46 to 4,800 yards, close to 30 touchdowns, and that's kind of a median projection, at least for me, touchdown wise. And then like looking at some other wide receivers, like, until the Buffalo Bills add somebody, you're looking at Curtis Samuel is probably jumping up there because you look at their offense right now as constructed. You're looking at Khalil Shakir, Justin Shorter, Matt Collins, Clunkzilla. I'm going to keep calling him.
Shakir's awesome.
I'm just worried about, look, Joe Brady had to come in because they had to make a scapegoat out of Ken Dorsey, and lo and behold, that offense pretty much ran through James Cook and Dalton Kincaid. And how did Joe Brady get his job in the NFL? Well, he happened to be the, coordinator of Joe Burrow and Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase and CEH and Terrace Marshall. Joe Brady might be the Terrace Marshall of that entire of offensive coordinators. I could totally see this Bills offense kind of just, unless they go get somebody. I mean, I would love for them to get Brandon Ayuk, but if they go get a rookie, like if they bring in who is the best rookie they could?
Lad McConkey, without a doubt.
Brian Thomas.
I've got Brian Thomas in my latest mock
as like a reasonable. Who could they get in the first round as far as a wide receiver? And does that instill any confidence in you that the Buffalo offense, even with Josh Allen, is going to be A, passing a lot, B, fruitful in that passing game? It's all going to be on Allen. And you're going to have like 37 slot guys like the Giants had last year. So right now you're looking at Curtis Samuel, who is probably the one right now, and it's a very tough, dicey one. Like nobody comes out other than Kincaid as a sexy option. But drafters like the fact that he's a wide receiver one, so he's come up like 5 rounds. Other than that,
before we get off this subject, sticking with the Bills, I wrote in my notes, where do we put Josh Allen in the quarterbacks. Like, do we still consider him a top 3 quarterback? Because last season he was first in deep passes, and now he's lost basically all his deep receivers in Diggs and Gabe Davis. I mean, Shakir was fine. He did a couple of really nice things, but prototypically he still is more of a slot guy. Are we still thinking of Josh Allen as a top 3 quarterback, or does he get dinged in best ball trends?
He should get dinged. He's a 2-3 turn guy right now, and that price is horrible. Like, I'm not taking him anywhere close to there. He's got a whole round on Jalen Hurts, and a like a half a round is Lamar Jackson. Like, that quarterback, something needs to happen. We need a big shift, because I'm not going to have any of those quarterbacks. Like, I am fully fine waiting on Joe Burrow. Even Anthony Richardson is kind of a tier break, because you get another round and a half before you get to have to go to QB7 with Joe Burrow. But then you still got Dak Prescott. The highest exposure quarterback I have right now, from me, and it's Jordan Love. Like, let me tell you the personal growth that I have gone through with Jordan Love as the staunch, solidified hater of the guy, not personally, but just as a Packer fan. I've come around. Like, 7th round is totally fine for Jordan Love. I don't want any prices on these quarterbacks. Josh Allen going to the 2-3 turn. Jalen Hurts at the 3-4 turn. Lamar Jackson a little bit after that in the mid-4th. Like, something needs to happen. And it extends to tight end too. Like, Dalton Schultz, put him in mothballs right now, because you're looking at how consolidated these targets are going to be with the top 3 wide receivers. Dalton Schultz is going to be Dawson Knox. He's going to catch a touchdown every so often. Is that dude really going to be ticketed for anything more than 75 targets? I can't see it. And he's going right now as tight end 13 in like the 11th round. Like, I can't do that. Like, there's a lot that's going on right now, and we're not going to see a lot of the especially with the Texans Bills stuff, with that stuff shaking out. But I'm very concerned about, how Diggs is going to be valued, how Nico Collins is going to be valued. Tank Dell is going to be the cheapest. I'm going to draft him the most just because he's the cheapest. But that's and saying that, he has just as good of a shot as being the top target on that team. So by all accounts, his ankle injury should be fine by the start of the season. But I think it's going to be a very interesting next month or so to see how everything shakes out with Diggs, Collins, Dell, and then where that all lands up. And I think Dalton Schultz is going to take a pretty big tumble. Not a big tumble, but enough of a tumble where you can't trust him as a tight end 1 on any best ball team.
Could Joe Mixon be the real winner?
I mean, efficiency of the offense is, in terms of that dude is locked into like 10 touchdowns. Absolutely.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, if we don't know which wide receiver, you think the offense is obviously going to be better having those 3 receivers together plus Schultz. To me, that would mean that Mixon's kind of the guy in Houston that, I'd definitely be, kind of upping where I have him valued at.
Yeah. And his price is fine. He's going to the beginning of the 5th round. Like, that's totally fine.
And I also think in best ball, everybody wants to stack. It's pretty impossible to get a Texan stack with where all 3 of these wide receivers and the quarterback is going right now. So if you want any piece of this Texans offense, that's where you flip to, is Mixon.
Right. And CJ Stroud is another interesting case too, because he's a guy that's not like super mobile, but you're having to draft him around everybody else who is. Mm-hmm. So he's kind of getting the Joe Burrow effect of maybe his price is a little, people are kind of over their skis, but then they see, obviously the 3 pass catchers and Dalton Schultz and Joe Mixon. This offense almost can't fail. Like, look below, get ready for 5 months of 49ers South takes, because that's pretty much what you're hoping for. That's like the best case scenario with, because obviously the 49ers have Ayuk, Debo, Kittle, CMC, like this awesome cadre of pass catchers, offensive skill position players. You can't treat them exactly like that, kind of sight unseen. Yeah, it looks great, but QB5, when you're looking at CJ Stroud in the 4th, end of the 4th, like, I can't do that. I'll do it for like exposure wise, but I'm going to be underweight totally on him. Like, the sweet spot, like I said, for quarterbacks is like Burrow, Dak Prescott, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy.
There you go. Now you're getting to my guy. Like, he was QB6 last year. What the fuck is wrong with people? He's with
He's
Shanahan.
QB 11
everybody's
right
coming-
now.
That's crazy. It's crazy. Like, the same thing for Dynasty. What's going to happen? As long as he has Shanahan, he's going to be really good. And they're going to be together for a long time. So for Dynasty, he was QB6 his first full year as a starter. The year before, in like 8 games, I think he was like QB 13 or 14. What does he need to like prove to you? And Shanahan's the best play caller. And again, far be it from the Falcons fan to defend Shanahan, but I mean, he's the best offensive mind in football, and it's really not even close anymore when you look at what they do and the players that have executed, because McVay needed Stafford, right, to be able to run that kind of offense. And Shanahan, it doesn't matter who the fuck you throw back there other than Trey Lance, and they're going to excel.
Oh, the Trey Lance slander with Kev. Oh,
I'm not
no.
trying
Look, I'm contractually obligated to not say anything bad about Trey Lance being in Fargo, North Dakota, but
I'm just saying.
man,
All right,
you
folks.
make it difficult.
Let's switch topics and get to the main topic of today's show. And this topic is not meant to be a lecture. It's not meant to be, hey, this is the take you should go with or not. It's literally just an open discussion because I heard it the other day listening to a player profiler podcast where they had Scott Connor from Destination Devy and Trades in 5. And he brought up a really good point talking about the real value of wide receivers in Dynasty and how the influx of this deep rookie class at the position kind of devalues other wide receivers that, are either in their second year or third year, or even second year or third year, especially the ones that we took last year that we thought were really good. So using DLF's Superflex rookie ADP, looking at the prospects here, technically they're not rookies. We have Marvin Harrison going at the 205. We have Malik Neighbors at the 303, Rome Odunze at the 406, Brian Thomas at the 703, Ladd McConkey at the 806. And now here's a list of wide receivers that are being pushed down because of this influx of these rookie prospects. Jahan Dotson, Dontavion Wicks, Jameson Williams, Josh Downs, Deontay Johnson, Michael Wilson, Romeo Doubs, Wan'Dale Robinson. Did I say that already? And then Cortland Sutton. A year ago, or even during the season, hell, even, December or January, a lot of these names were probably pretty sought after in terms of being good assets to have on your dynasty roster. And you probably could have gotten a really good deal in terms of draft pick compensation. And now as we're getting closer to the NFL draft, it makes me question, has the supply with the increase in the supply, you've lessened now the demand. Therefore, you're having to give up less to acquire these wide receivers. Is that crazy talk, or is there some like validity to what I'm saying here? Keith, we'll start with you.
I mean, the guys that you listed is what makes it kind of difficult for me to put this together, because Jameson Williams is the only guy, in my opinion, that was elite out of the names that you just listed, when there's 4 or 5 elite wide receivers in this class. Now, if you're talking about these guys next to like Tank Dell, Puka, other guys that are in their first 3-4 years that are, number 1 wide receivers, I would still rather have if people are overvaluing to me these rookie receivers, we don't know even where they're going, what the situation's going to be yet. And I mean, it's just like seeing Justin Jefferson and best balls and stuff going to like 1-3, 1-4. What the hell is wrong with people? Like, it's Justin Jefferson. He's the best wide receiver. It doesn't matter who's throwing him the ball. He's going to get a ton of targets. It's going to be really good. I would spend this time trying to target, the Jamar Chases, because it looks like if you're saying that these guys' value is up so much, that would devalue every wide receiver, meaning you could go get one of these elite guys that we've seen and we know are linked to a good QB, because with Chase, you got Burrow. I know, say what you want about Tua, but somebody like Jalen Waddle, right? In year 3, Tyreek's not going to be there forever. I would much rather go get a sure thing like Jalen Waddle, who we know is in a good situation, than spend a bunch of capital on one of these wide receivers when right now I don't even know where they're going to play. To Britt's point earlier, it's like it's really gambling to put too much stock in any of these guys except for Brock Bowers, which you should be taking as early as possible, no matter what, because he's QB proof. But I mean, to me, like, try to target the younger guys that are 3-4 years established, and we know their situation is going to be better, rather than spending a fortune on one of these rookies, unless you're just really invested that, this is the guy, and, hopefully you're right.
Kevin, what are your thoughts here?
Like, there's always, that's the beauty of kind of Dynasty, where now we have more talking points about these wide receivers where we wouldn't have had, these talking points in previous years. We're kind of shifting all the talk up that creates buying opportunities. And we typically wouldn't have buying opportunities for like the wide receivers 35 through 45 in Dynasty in previous years for the wide receivers. And now we do. We can kind of target, we see Anthony Richardson. We could target a guy like Josh Downs. We could target a guy like, Romeo Doubs, who, if we're looking at the Packers offense, we know that offense can be spread out between a lot of targets. But if you find the one that maybe, Devontae Adams wasn't a rock star in his first 2 seasons. And then
Jameson Williams is that guy for me right now. It's like good offense, was, the most talented receiver in a really good receiver class. He could still be a monster, especially if you saw like the plays he made. Was that the Packers? I can't even remember what game it was where he scored the 2 touchdowns late in the season, but you finally saw like the explosive, not only as a receiver, but as a runner as well.
Right. And like Romeo Doubs is somebody that I would love to target. Look at his the playoff run that he had. Christian Watson can't stay on the field. He's seeing a specialist right now about his hamstrings. Which is bad. You look at the last couple seasons where he's had those recurring issues. And now, with Dobbs, Dontayvion Wicks, Jayden Reed, we got to figure it's going to be 2 of those guys are going to be in the starting, 3 wide receiver set for the Packers. And if you can pick out Romeo Doubs, who should be there, right now, like looking, he's like what, wide receiver 50 something? Like, that just seems crazy as far as if you're looking for a buying opportunity with some of these guys. We wouldn't have been talking about them in years past, but we're talking about them now, which is kind of shows you the strength of the wide receiver, where we can pick out a lot of these guys in great situations that we wouldn't normally have a shot to go after, and now we can.
Let me give a shout out quickly in the chat here. Thank you, everybody who's watching right now. For those who don't know, that's Rachel over on Twitter. She is an amazing.
I want you to say her YouTube name. Come on, man.
The Tootsie Pop 6.
Thank you.
Sorry. There you go. How you doing tonight? Jack in the chat. How's it going? Mr. Bob Harris. Bob, great to see you as always.
Bob Harris, by the way, you can have Jeff Wilson in King's Classic. I locked eyes with him during the draft last year. I went like that when he put in like a $5 bid on Jeff Wilson, but I ended up getting Raheem Mostert for 3. So,
were you like being stray tomcats, like just meow?
Well, I heard him make the bid, and I looked over because it was Dom Cinerino next to me, and then Bob was 2 seats away from me. So I went back like that was my guy, and I wish we all make mistakes. I drafted like 25% Jeff Wilson last year in best ball. So,
Britt, what are your thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, so I've always been one to look at opportunity, because I think that there are so many busts that I think that the draft capital argument isn't really a helpful indicator of success. We saw it last season with Puka Nacua. We saw it 2 years ago with Amon-Ra St. Brown. We've kind of seen these undrafted free agents like Adam Thielen, et cetera, come out. But there was a study that came out in 2022, again, because I'm a nerd and I love to dig as deep as possible, that focused on the previous 7 years of data and showed that 50% of first-round draft picks were on a different team with their second contract. Over 40% of second-round picks and over 30% of third-round picks. So these are players with day 1 or day 2 draft capital who everybody was super high on and like, yeah, gung-ho, they're going to be great in the NFL, who just didn't pan out. So I don't think that draft capital is an indicator of success. I think that you really need to look at the opportunity. And we also thought that Quentin Johnston last year was going to be a great pick based on his draft capital. But even with Mike Williams going out in week 3, he only finished with 431 yards and 2 touchdowns. My dear sweet prince, Treylon Burks, with first round draft capital. Same thing, has not done jack shit in 2 seasons.
I was traded for AJ Brown. Ouch! I just always got to bring that up.
By the way, pour one out for new Seahawk Laviska Shenault, by the way.
Oh no. Yeah, and see, everybody's been on that train forever and ever.
Just say my name. It's okay.
Well, it's not just you though. It's been a lot of people. Marvin Mims last year couldn't even get on the field with, Jerry Jeudy being a non-factor. Yeah, right.
Sean Payton just had to get little Jordan Humphrey on the field.
Right. I mean, it just you never know what's going to happen. Draft capital is not the be all end all. I think that the opportunity is the number one thing, and looking at what happens in training camp, what happens throughout the season, listening to those beat reporters, although they are not always accurate, is a much bigger indicator of dynasty success. And Jack, damn you, I haven't talked to you in a couple months, and then you're saying that, okay?
All right, so one more spin off of this topic before we start closing out today's show. Now we're talking about the depreciating value of wide receivers. What does this do to second and third year running backs now? Because we're hearing all the talk about this running back class is not as deep as previous seasons. Let's kick it back up to Keith here. Are you interested more in a Brian Robinson? Would you pay up more for a Brian Robinson?
I'm not paying for any running back. Jorge. How long have we been friends? Like, it's just there's no point. Like, what are we doing at this point? What are we?
Another
doing?
convert, baby.
I mean, the NFL doesn't even pay fucking running backs. Why would you in fantasy pay for running backs? Like,
you have to start them. You
do. You just literally find value. That's kind of the point. To me in Dynasty, I'm always looking to trade for, somebody's trash is my treasure, basically. And I mean, that's the way I look at running backs, is I try to find a situation where maybe I think an offense is going to be a little better. He's mentioning like Gus Edwards is a guy. For instance, there's people like Tank Bigsby. I'm still not a Travis Etienne believer. Sue me. Like, so that means maybe Tank Bigsby, like guys that you can get for nothing that are young. Like, why not? Kick and see what's Cordell Patterson's going to end up, we know, being the number one back in Pittsburgh with Arthur Smith there. So, I mean, there's a lot of options you can have, is my point. But
new Tony Pollard, Jalen Warren, baby.
Yeah.
That's kind of my point. Like, you say for nothing. Is that true? Like, Kevin, let's go to you here. Is that, true? Like a lot of these running backs, like a Tank Bigsby, and God, I wish I had a much better example than Tank Bigsby. We're just going to roll with that.
How dare you?
Look, he was great at Auburn.
Tiger, come on.
You can't have two schools. You're a Georgia fan or an Auburn fan. You can't be.
Auburn's an hour from my house. You know how many times I've gotten wasted on Auburn campus? So I have a soft spot for it. I'm sorry.
Right, fair enough.
Where were you the night the tree was taken out?
Oh, no.
Don't you pin that on me.
Not going down that route. No, sir. That was definitely some Bama fans. Surprise, right?
Wow. So many shots being fired everywhere. Kevin, what are your thoughts on the running back value, second or third year running backs, in terms of we're seeing the depreciation of wide receivers? Are we seeing the uptick in value for these younger running backs? Or are they not correlated at all?
I don't know if they're, I kind of look at each position in a vacuum. It has its own kind of ecosystem, the way you're valuing these guys. I'm still just waiting on running back, because you can find these touches so far late, especially in dynasty, like startups. Like, we could probably get Gus Edwards in like the 15th round. You could probably get, a Jerome Ford around there too. Like, you can find these touches everywhere. Like Zach Moss, guys like that. Like, it doesn't pay. Like, I think we talked about this a few weeks ago about, when I'm doing a dynasty startup, I'm drafted all like wide receivers and tight ends and quarterbacks, and then waiting for running backs. If I'm in a window where I know I can compete with my roster, then I'll go get running backs. Like, I'm not spending any more capital than I have to, because a lot of these guys are such fool's gold to, for every, for every James Cook, there's a Felix Jones. Like, guys like that.
Do not slander Felix Jones, God damn it.
Wow, that's digging deep right there. Love it.
I didn't know how Britt would react to that. I kind of had that in the back pocket. But okay, for every James Cook, there's a Kenyon Drake. Like, there's all these guys that, we assume that they're the new hotness, and then they're just nothing, and then they're valueless. Like, I don't want to be holding on to that, guys. Any
I
of
want to
those guys.
answer Greg's question because there is definitely people, Roddy White, Reggie Wayne, Nico Collins last year. Like, there's been guys that did nothing like year 1 or year 2 and then kind of broke. And Williams was suspended for, half of the year, I think it was. And his rookie year, he was just injured. I mean, there really wasn't anything they could do. And you knew that when you drafted him.
Yeah.
And I
Like Jackson
think
Smith and
even-
Jigba could be one of those.
And
I
you
mean,
can
we still
even
got to
make
wait
the case
out
for
for
Devontae Adams.
Yeah, Mr. Drops in Green Bay the first couple seasons before it finally clicked with him and Aaron Rodgers. All right, let's close out the show for today. Let's start with just plugging anything and everything you want to plug. Keith, let's start with you.
We got WrestleMania this weekend. I'm very excited about that. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm a grown man who, loves toys, sports cards, and wrestling. And then a bunch of nerd data. And then not only that, we got just 10 days away from Augusta National, the Masters, the greatest sporting event that there is each year. If you ever get a chance to go, do it. It's the most
I've
beautiful
been there.
place on earth. Is it not amazing, Kevin? Seriously.
So I won one of the lot. Me and my buddy Jeff won the lottery that they have for the par 3 challenge. So I got to go on that Wednesday, and it was fantastic. Everything they say about it's true.
This was going to say very few things live up to the hype Augusta National, the Masters does. Yes, the beers really are like $3. Yes, you can get a sandwich for $2.
Like $1. Yeah,
That's
It's,
what I heard.
it's unbelievable. And the food is incredible, by the way. And literally, if a piece of trash hits the ground, within 30 seconds, there will be somebody picking that trash up that works there. Literally, you go to the restroom and somebody comes after and sprays it down. It's just unbelievable place. But anyway, it's one of my favorite times of the year. We'll be doing a lot of golf coverage next week on Fantasy Six Pack, on my obviously the Wednesday spot on ESPN Northwest Florida. We will for 45 minutes here. We give a bunch of Masters stats and history, and then give a bunch of picks and plays. And in that light, I will say the one future I'll give you is Brooks Koepka right now is 20-1 to win the Masters. It is so disrespectful to the best big game hunter in the world, Brooks Koepka, that there's 3 guys that basically are getting half the juice that he is. Go make that bet. You're welcome. But other than that, very happy to do this, Britt. I'm so glad to have you here with us. And, Jorge and Kevin, you guys are all right too.
That's fair. That's fair.
I'll take it. That's the nicest thing you said about me.
Britt, anything you want to plug?
Yeah, I actually do. So I know that we're all excited about the NFL draft coming up and MLB being back, but I have to plug the Arkansas Razorbacks men's baseball team.
Oh,
They are the unanimous #1 across every single poll, and they're going on a program record 18 straight wins at Baum-Walker Stadium. They are playing Ole Miss tonight. It started at 6. I have not checked the score, but they're looking to extend that streak to a whopping 19 home wins. Woo, pig, suey. Let's fucking go.
Hello.
I love it. Kevin, what about you, man?
Should we plug the venture that some of us in this stream will be going on as far as
I think we should. For those who don't know, you here at Fantasy and Frames, we have a brand new show that'll be debuting very soon in 2 weeks, right after Fantasy Football Weekly, and that is the Fantasy and Frames Draft Show, hosted by Stacey Perez. Kevin will be there. Keith will be there. I'm going to try and talk Britt into showing up because it wouldn't be the same without Britt on a Thursday night here at Fantasy and Frames. And basically, from best ball to redraft to Scott Fishbowl mocks to FFPC, like we're going to be covering a whole lot of drafts, whole lot of draft types, really helping you, the fantasy football fan, get exposure to what really is out there. Because, contrary to popular opinion, there is more than Underdog. I know that's slander. Sorry, Underdog. You're great. You're fantastic. But there is more out there for people to explore, different platforms to, get used to. So we're going to cover all that. So Stacey Perez, who put together the Fantasy and Frames Women Best Ball Challenge. First year we've done that. We had 3 live drafts. Britt, you came on the second draft. Like just an amazing human being, first and foremost. And just to have her, who is really big in FFPC drafts each and every single year. She goes out to Vegas for these drafts. She does the Kentucky drafts. Like you name it, she does it all. So we're really excited to get this thing going, starting in a couple weeks. Was that what you were talking about? Is that what I should have been plugging? Just to
Sure was. That was
Okay,
yes.
Okay.
That was it. It's funny. I met Stacy through the KFFSC like 4 or 5 years ago, and it's a small space, but it's fantastic. So can't wait for that. And also want to shout out, well, not really a shout out because he's a piece of shit. John Fisher, the owner of the A's franchise, for moving to Sacramento for the 2 years that they will be operating their Washington football A's.
Did the guys really get in trouble for wearing the bracelets? Is that true? Like, is that why they benched Rooker? And
I have no idea, but the fact that he was in Sacramento at Sutter Health Park saying it's the most intimate park in Major League Baseball, and he can't wait to watch MLB's top stars like Aaron Judge hit home runs there. Like, I can't wait to see the other team hit home runs in our 2 years in Sacramento. So he's a clown douchebag. Anyway, it's not even my team. I'm a Yankee fan. I hope Aaron Judge hits.
they're like, we have Moneyball to fall back on. We're good. Brad Pitt, is in a movie about us. Could be worse.
Love it. All right, folks. Well, that's going to wrap us up here on Fantasy Football Weekly. This is the cast. This is the crew. This is what you can look forward to every Thursday night. At 8 p.m. Eastern. Britt, welcome to the Fantasy and Frames family. We are ecstatic to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here. You guys are a lot of fun. Thank you for allowing me to cuss and say GD without calling me a fantasy slut. If you know, you know.
All right, folks, for all you paying attention or watching, thank you very much. We appreciate it, and we will see you all next week.